Okay, this is my final vlog, the evaluation. So I'm going to start with vocals in rehearsals. When I didn't really know my lines, I didn't really colour them, as David said, and use a lot of expression. But when I started to get to know them and understand what I was saying, I really started to use my vocal range and different sort of expressions. I was very loud when I said it, and I had really good diction when I said all of my lines. Some of them that were a bit tongue twistery, I probably lost the diction a little bit, but you could still understand what I was saying, and that was constant throughout the rehearsals and the shows. I also said my lines in a way that you could understand them. I didn't read my lines, I spoke them, and using a lot of expression and colouring them helped to understand what I was saying and what I was talking about. I think it helped because I understood what I was saying. I went on SparkNotes and looked. I translated some of the script, but I did look at all of my scenes. I just didn't write them all down, so I knew exactly what I was saying and what the scene was about. My accent didn't really change. I didn't really put an accent on. I just made myself sound kind of stupid and just did like a silly voice. It was kind of a voice I do normally when I'm messing around, so I thought it'd suit the character. So my voice didn't really change, but it didn't need to change. It wasn't something that I needed to change about my voice. So going on to physical, my character used a lot of body language and big expressions like vocals. My character also used big sort of vocal ranges. I don't know what I'm saying. I think my character used big expressions because she was always kind of ignored, and when the attention was on her, she wanted it to all be on her, so she'd use big expressions, and that was just sort of the kind of character she was. She was just a very expressive person, showed her emotion through her facial expressions and body language, and she was just very open about how she was feeling all the time, so therefore her expressions were massive. So in rehearsals, I was always in character, like fully. I never sort of just said my lines. That was only when I was ill. I probably did that. Even when I was ill, I still don't think I just said my lines. I always acted it out. I always gave all my energy and like everything. And if things went wrong, I'd always carry on. I think a few times I did probably mess around and then stop the scene. But I think that was mainly in the scene where I had to fall over. That was a ridiculous scene. I couldn't do it, and every time I tried to do it, David would laugh at me, and I'd laugh at myself, and I could not continue that. That was something that couldn't happen. So I would break out of character at that point when doing that scene. But most scenes I was always in character, and I never sort of like dawdled off. I think my character might have looked at the audience more. So in Shakespeare, you look at the audience when you're saying your lines, or some of your lines, or you look at the audience at the beginning of the line and then look back to the person you're talking to on stage. I think I would have done that more. I did it quite a lot. My character did it like with everything she said, but I think I would have done it more. That's just the kind of person I was, but I didn't do it more, and I only thought that after the shows, unfortunately. But it still worked. I still did it enough, and like more than most people did, but I think I could have done it a lot more, and it would have been more effective and worked with what my character was and what I was like. So the thing in the shows as well as rehearsals, I think my energy wasn't amazing at the start of the play. So in my first scene, I come on as with less energy than I start to get, so my energy progresses throughout the play. And it shouldn't have been like that, because it should just be that my energy was constantly like that. And because there's things that have happened before the play. There's a life before the play. It's not like I've only been alive during the play, and life continues after the play, but you just see that small snippet of everyone's life. So my energy should have been consistent throughout the play, but it wasn't, and it was lacking at the beginning of the performance, which it shouldn't have done. And I also didn't realise that until after the play. Unfortunately, I don't know how I didn't realise it, but my energy was rubbish at the start. I was always focused in rehearsals, always was sort of, like I said before, always in my character and stuff, and I was always ready if my scene was, if there was a scene happening on stage, there was like a scene or two scenes before a scene I was in, I'd get ready at the place where I enter. Sometimes I'd forget, so if it was like a scene with me and Louise, for example, Louise would be like, we've got to be on stage in a minute, so we'd go wait, or I'd be like, Louise, we've got to be on stage in a minute, or depending on who the scene was with, we'd like remind each other, but I mostly remembered. In rehearsals, I always act like it's the actual performance. I think I said that before, kind of. I'd always I'd not break out of character, but like I said before, there was one scene that I kept on breaking out of because of how difficult it was. But I'd mostly tried to just keep going, and if I forgot my line, I'd just keep going, and it happened a few times with me and Louise in rehearsals. I forgot my line. I think I did it twice. We ran through the scene twice, and I forgot the same line both times. So she just sort of carried on, and it worked because my line wasn't really that relevant, so she just continued with what we were saying and just continued with the scene, which worked. So like I say, I tried to be always on the ball, not breaking out of character or stopping the scene in rehearsals, especially when doing run-throughs, because when you're doing a run-through you need to get an idea of the time of the play, and if you keep stopping, then that's not going to happen. Sometimes when people were doing other scenes that I wasn't in, people would start talking to me, or I'd start talking to them, and I'd forget that we needed to be quiet, and David would be like, shh, shh, and I'd forget that we had to be quiet and like respectful of other people, because I know when I was doing scenes and people were talking, it was really frustrating, even though, to be honest, most of the time I didn't even notice, because I was that in the scene, I didn't notice people talking. But a lot of people find it difficult to concentrate if they can hear like jibber jabber in the background, which you should get used to, because when you're doing a performance, the audience are probably going to be talking. There might be kids in the audience screaming, there could be someone that starts having a coughing fit, and you can't let little things like that distract you, which I understand, but I understand that people find it hard and need to get used to it. But I did sometimes talk when other people were on stage, but I tried not to when I remembered, and if David told me to stop talking, I would stop talking. When I got directed and we were blocking scenes, I'd never ask why David asked me to do something. I'd never be like, why do I have to do that? I'd just do it. Like, there's no point in asking why. And if you're doing a professional thing in the future and you ask the director why you have to do something, they're not going to tell you, and they don't care if you don't like it or don't want to do it. You're going to have to do it anyway, so you need to deal with it, basically. So I just do whatever he told me to do and do it with confidence. Probably do it wrong. I did it wrong quite a few times, but so David had to show me quite a lot how he wanted me to do something. Again, I'll use the falling over scene. Nope. That he showed me a million times. We rehearsed it a million times. I was dead. Still didn't get it. It just looked ridiculous. But it kind of worked. It was that ridiculous, it kind of worked. So that's my rehearsal process. I feel the shows were pretty consistent throughout all of them. I didn't really have ups and downs. I didn't really have a bad performance and a good performance. The only thing I'd say is on the first night my projection wasn't that good. It needed to be louder, which David told me after the show, so the next day I was louder and it was better. He said it was a lot more improved, but that's the only thing that kind of really changed in all of the performances we did. I was really, it was just all the same. I'm just sort of, how I am in rehearsals with full energy is how I am in the performance, and that never sort of changes. It always seems to be at the same level. So all of my performances went really well. I never mess up lines, touch wood. Yeah, I never forgot any of the blocking. I didn't forget any of my cues. It was all really smooth. I feel like my performance was really good in both of the plays. So yeah. To conclude this last video log, what I've learnt is learning lines on the deadline is really important, especially if you're doing Shakespeare. I've only ever done a few Shakespeare plays, but this is the hardest one, probably because the last one I did Macbeth, but it was like a really shortened version, it's like 15 minutes. I also did another Shakespeare play years ago, and I can't remember what it's called now, which was an hour long, but I didn't have many lines, so I found that pretty easy, and I learnt the lines in rehearsals. We didn't have a deadline, we learnt the lines as we were going, and I do find that easier to sort of, because then I put the lines to the blocking. So forgot where I am. Yeah, learning lines on the deadline is really important. That's what I've learnt. You would have thought I've learnt it before from other plays, but no. Like, next play I do, I'm learning my lines as soon as I get my script, because it makes rehearsals so much harder. It just makes everything so much more stressful. The both characters that I did in both the plays were really similar to characters I've done before, so I didn't really learn anything new about that. I mainly I've learned more about the language. I think I understand the language more from just doing this play and finding out what different words mean. I feel like I understand Shakespeare a little bit more. Not fully. If I saw a Shakespeare play, I'd still probably not understand most of what they were saying, but I learned a lot about both of these plays, and they're really interesting, and I thought it was loads of fun, and I'm going to miss Shakespeare. Thank you. That was my last video log.